Okay, look, before you click off the video, I really need you to hear me out for a minute because I know exactly what you came in here with. You came in here with a mosquito bite somewhere on your body that you've been scratching so much for the past 3 days that you just want to... You also came in here with a deep personal hatred that's been building since childhood and absolutely zero interest in hearing anything that sounds like somebody defending the mosquito. And I completely understand. I understand because I've been there. I've stood outside in the summer slapping myself like I was trying to start a fire just to keep these things off of me. So trust me, I know what it's like. But I need you to put that hatred aside for the next few minutes. It might be difficult for a lot of you to do that because of your history with these things, but it's not forever. It's just for right now. You can always hate them after this video is finished, but just open your mind and hear me out. Because the way most people think about the mosquito as this useless, evil, pointless little blood-sucking monster that exists purely to ruin your life is not the full picture. And the full picture is way more interesting and way weirder than mosquito bad. So again, I'm just asking you to put your hatred aside for a minute so that we can talk about this animal honestly. That includes all the good, the bad, and the absolutely inexcusable. Now, to be clear, I'm not promising you that you're going to love the mosquito by the end of this video, but I do think that you're going to look at it differently. And honestly, given what most people know about mosquitoes, that bar is pretty low, so let's see if we can clear it. Before I dive into all of that, I want to mention that there are over 3,500 known species of mosquitoes on Earth, and that they live on every single continent except Antarctica, and in just about every ecosystem on the planet, from rainforests, wetlands, tundras, and deserts. Now, that 3,500 number is really worth stopping on, because when most people think mosquito, they're thinking about one insect, one animal with one reputation based on one experience. But, and this goes without saying, 3,500 species isn't just one thing. It's an enormous and wildly diverse family of insects that all eat different things and behave differently. So they absolutely cannot all be described as the one mosquito that started singing in your ear at 3 a.m. because if I'm being honest here, that's just a stupid thing to do. See, of those 3,500 species, roughly only around 15% of them are known to bite humans at all. And out of that 15%, fewer than 100 species total, which is less than 3% of the entire mosquito family, are known to reliably carry and transmit human pathogens. So the mosquito that's responsible for everything you hate about mosquitoes, whether that's the diseases they spread, the biting, or the shopping trips at your local pharmacy, that mosquito represents less than 3% of the entire mosquito family. The other 97 are just out there living their lives, not interested in your blood and not transmitting anything to anybody. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I don't care. I hate all of them. They can all go to hell. And look, I hear you. I really do. But squishing 3,500 species into one villain based on what fewer than 3% of them do is genuinely a stupid thing to do. Look at it this way. If 3% of dog breeds were causing problems, nobody would be out here calling for the elimination of all dogs. Well, unless you just really hate dogs, but that's besides the point. We'd be talking about those specific breeds that's causing the problem, right? But with mosquitoes, we've somehow decided that the whole family is guilty. And I just think before we go scorched earth on 3,500 species, we should at least know what we're actually dealing with. So with all of that blabbering out of the way, let me start by saying that both male and female mosquitoes of all 3,500 plus species feed primarily on nectar and other sugary plant sources like honeydew, with the occasional plant sap. The whole blood-sucking thing that has defined this animal's entire existence is not how they feed. And it's not even something that every mosquito does, because only female mosquitoes of certain species will seek blood for one specific reason and one reason only, which is reproduction. And the females do this because they need the proteins and iron in your blood to develop viable eggs. That's literally the entire reason. When she's not actively developing eggs, she's just out there sipping on nectar. And aside from the females, male mosquitoes can't even bite at all because they literally don't have the mouth parts for it. So the 6 to 10 day lifespans of male mosquitoes consists of visiting flowers, sipping on nectar, and then dying. having never once touched a human in their lives. They live and die as tiny, unappreciated pollinators.
So what you actually have here is an insect where half the population is essentially a flying bee that has done absolutely nothing to anyone, and the other half is a plant feeder that occasionally needs a blood meal to make eggs. Now, that's a very different animal from the relentless, bloodthirsty predator that lives in your head, right? And since we're on the whole blood thing, because I know you want to understand it, let me actually explain what's happening when a female bites you, because the biology of it is something most people genuinely don't know, and it changes the whole thing. See, a female mosquito finds you through the carbon dioxide you exhale, your body heat, and specific chemical compounds your skin releases. She's essentially homing in on you, like a GPS that you can't turn off. And the more you breathe, the more signal you give her, so good luck with that whole not wanting to be bitten thing. But anyway, she lands on you, right? Then she inserts what looks like one singular needle, but is actually 6 separate needle-like components, and they all have different functions. Those components include one labrum, which acts as a straw because it forms a food canal that's used to probe under the skin, locate a blood vessel, and suck the blood upward. She also has 2 maxillae, which are serrated like tiny saws, and it's used to slice through your skin. And it's also used like an anchor because it holds her steady so she can really get deep under your skin. She also has 2 mandibles that's used to hold your flesh and tissue apart while the maxillae does all the sawing. And last but not least, she has 1 hypopharynx, which is a hollow tube that injects saliva. Now that's saliva, right? That's the entire source of your suffering. Why? Because it contains anticoagulants to keep your blood from clotting while she feeds, and your immune system identifies those anticoagulants as foreign material and reacts to them, which is what produces the itch and the welt and the 3 days of quietly resenting nature. Now this is just something I want to throw out there, in case you were wondering. She only takes about 2 to 3 milligrams of blood. For context, a single raindrop, on average, is about 50 milligrams of water. So what she's taking from you is actually nothing. And no, she doesn't hate you and she doesn't have any feelings about you at all. She just needed groceries for her kids and you were the most convenient thing in her general vicinity. Which doesn't make it any less annoying, but at least now you know that it wasn't because of a personal vendetta. Now, what about those eggs that she makes with your blood? Well, they eventually get laid in standing water. That's like ponds, wetlands, puddles, marshes, the small amount of water sitting in a forgotten pot in your backyard. Really, any of it will do, which is part of the reason why this animal is everywhere, because standing water is everywhere. Now, when those eggs hatch underwater, they live there, for a while at least, feeding on algae and bacteria and decaying organic matter, and during that time, they'll go through several growing stages before they're ready to emerge as adults. But during that entire underwater period, while they're just growing, not bothering anyone, they're one of the most important food sources in those aquatic environments, because fish eat them, frogs eat them, turtles eat them, dragonfly larvae eat them, and many aquatic insects eat them. So what that means is that in many freshwater ecosystems, whether we know it or not, mosquito larvae aren't just part of the food chain, they're a foundational pillar of it. Because the sheer density of them in standing water makes them a reliable and easily accessible food source for a huge range of aquatic animals in a way that very few other insects can match. And if you pull them out of those ecosystems, you are not just creating a gap, you are setting off an avalanche through everything that was depending on mosquitoes, and then everything depending on those things that ate the mosquitoes, and so on down the line, in ways that are genuinely hard to predict or stop.
Now, when those mosquitoes grow up, right, they sprout wings and fly out of the water and carry all the nutrients they built up from their larval feeding stage with them into the terrestrial world. And this isn't some small transfer of nutrients, by the way. Mosquito biomass in Alaska alone has been estimated roughly at around 96 million pounds. And yes, that's a back-of-the-napkin number based on some pretty fuzzy math about how you count trillions of insects. But it does give you the sheer scale of what we're talking about. That's 96 million pounds of nutritional material moving out of aquatic ecosystems and into the air every year. And birds are waiting for it, bats are waiting for it, frogs, spiders, lizards, dragonflies, and other insects, all of them are waiting for it. In fact, many migratory birds actually time their migration to arrive right when mosquitoes are mass emerging from northern wetlands, because mosquitoes are that important and that reliable of a food source during breeding season, when the energy demands of those birds are at their highest.
Now, when a mosquito dies, whether eaten and excreted or just dying on its own, it decomposes and returns all the microbes and nutrients it consumed as a larva back into the soil. So this whole thing is a loop if you're not picking up what I'm putting down. Water to air to soil, moving nutrients between worlds that wouldn't otherwise exchange them over and over in every ecosystem on the planet except one. Oh, and just to rewind a bit, while those larvae were living in the water, they were also filtering it because they were consuming algae and bacteria and other decaying organic matter. They were breaking down complex compounds, which contributes to better water quality for those environments and the health of the microorganism communities that everything else in the water depends on. And I've never heard anybody say thank you. Because here you have an animal that's so tiny, but it's actually pulling the weight of the entire planet. Because they filter your pond, and then they emerge and feed your birds, and then they die and feed your soil, and the whole time you're out there with bug spray trying to eliminate them like you've identified the problem. You have identified less than 3% of the problem and declared war on the whole family.
But anyway, now we have to talk about the bad 3%, because I did say that I would talk about the bad things as well, so here we are. Now, there's no way I can sugarcoat this, so I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off and say it. That less than 3% of mosquitoes are the deadliest animals on Earth because they kill somewhere between 700,000 and 1 million people every year through the diseases they spread. And malaria alone, which is spread by Anopheles mosquitoes, caused 249 million cases globally in 2022 and resulted in around 608,000 deaths. And those are numbers just for malaria, because dengue fever, which is transmitted by Aedes mosquitoes, now threatens half of the world's population across more than 100 countries. Not to mention the other diseases like yellow fever, Zika, West Nile, and encephalitis. Everything on that list is a serious and deadly disease, with the cumulative human cost across all of recorded history being estimated in the hundreds of millions. And that's if we're being conservative with our estimates. Human history has been materially shaped by it, so there's no defending it, no reframing it, and no making it okay.
However, this is where being precise actually matters, because the species doing all of that killing are a very specific and very small group. Because again, of the 3,500 species, fewer than 100 are known to reliably transmit human pathogens. The Anopheles species, responsible for the worst malaria transmission, number around 40 out of nearly 500 known Anopheles species. 40 species out of 3,500 are responsible for the overwhelming majority of mosquito-related human death, which doesn't make those 40 any less dangerous or any less of a problem.
But the good news, if you want to call it that given everything, is that scientists are already working on the precise version. This version would be a targeted genetic approach that could suppress or eliminate specific disease-carrying species without touching the rest of the family. So take out the 40 and leave the 3,460 alone. Leave the 96 million pounds of biomass in Alaska doing its thing. Leave the water filtration and the migratory bird food supply alone. Now, it's not there yet because it's easier said than done, but that's where the science is pointing. And it's pointing there because the people who understand these animals most clearly are the ones arguing the loudest that precision matters here. That you can't just blow up 3,500 species and assume nothing important breaks.